Hey everybody, it's Hunger again, and today I'm going to be discussing Pokémon Sword and Shield, specifically the fact that the National Pokedex will not be playable in Pokémon Sword and Shield, meaning that players will only have access to the Pokémon listed in the Galar Pokedex, and after the game is over or whatever, there will be no importing other Pokemon from other regions into the game. This video is my opinion. To start with, it's not. It's based on the way I feel about it. I did make another video, which was more of a tongue-in-cheek, sort of just reacting to the reaction of the Pokemon community. You know, and I used bits of Pokemon's own commercials to do it. I mean, I'll link that video here in the description. Check it out. It was very popular. So I'm doing another video that's more my opinions on it rather than just some clips that I found on the internet. So anyway. But yeah, I wanted to really kind of address not just the issue of the Pokedex being gone, but some of the responses that I've seen to it, because I've been watching kind of how the community has been absorbing this, and basically the community seems to be kind of divided into two camps. There's the camp that is really passionate about bringing back the National Dex. They're spamming Pokemon's Twitter feed and with the hashtag bring back the National Dex, or all the various different hashtags that are associated with that movement. And then there's then there's part of the community which honestly mostly consists of bigger Poketubers that are kind of like, oh, shut the heck up, you're being entitled, you're being whiny, wham bam bam. So anyway, and some of them are being nicer about it than that. I'm just saying that a lot of the response videos that I've seen about it are like, "Oh, you're being a hypocrite. You're gonna play the game anyway, and you're gonna love it. You should just be quiet about it." Or just I don't really care. There's been a lot of people saying I don't really care about it, but like, oh, you've never been able to catch them all in the game anyway. Anyway, so I want to look at some of those arguments and sort of tear them to pieces, and explain why it's not okay to kind of condescend people like that. Anyway, I'm not trying to start a beef with anybody or anything like that. This isn't about creating drama in the community and perpetuating that. It's actually kind of about explaining why people are upset about it, and sort of telling people not to do that sort of thing, but not trying to call anybody out on it specifically or get people mad at them. Anyway, so first of all, the decision itself, right? So at the E3 Treehouse event for Pokemon Sword and Shield, members of the development team announced through an interpreter that there would be this sort of culling of the National Dex, where we would only get to use Pokemon that naturally make their home in the Galar region. And a lot of people were upset. Understandably so, I believe. Now, for the people saying, oh, you're so entitled, here's the thing. Let me put it to you this way. If Capcom came out at E3 and said, hey, we've got a new Mega Man game going, and in this Mega Man game, we decided to go in a bold new direction to make sure that we get the game out to the fans as fast as possible, Mega Man is not going to be able to take on the powers of the enemies he defeats. You're just going to be using the Mega Buster, his little pew pew gun the whole time. So some people in the Mega Man community would be all on board with it. There are people that do no powers runs, only Mega Buster only runs all the time. Like that's like their thing. That's fine. You know, it's fine that there are people that would be on board with that, but there would be a lot of people that were like, what's the point? It's not even a Mega Man game anymore. You know? So again, I just, you know, Patty Trills did a video where he kind of tried to use the analogy, well, that'd be like making a Zelda game without the Master Sword in it, but it was kind of a bad analogy because there was literally plenty of Zelda games with you don't use the Master Sword. You know, I've seen a couple of variations of this argument. For example, people, oh, well, there's never been a game where you can just catch all the Pokemon. Of course not. That's never been a thing. That's never, even in Gen 1, you couldn't just pop in Pokemon Red and literally catch all 151 Pokemon without interacting with another game and transferring them over. Like, that's always been what Pokemon's been about, is interacting with other games and transferring Pokemon over in order to complete your Pokedex. Okay? So, you know, but ever since the beginning of the game, in every game in the entire main series, unless you want to count the Let's Go games, and I don't because they're not main series games, in my opinion, you've been able to finish your Pokedex and get every Pokemon that existed up to that point by transferring them from other games. Okay, it's a key feature in the franchise. It enhances replayability, and the amount of time that players spend in the post game, because the more stuff you have that you can do in the post game, the better. Nintendo has spent the better part of 2 decades, you know, even more than that now, basically trying to brainwash their fan base into catching them all. You know, that's been their slogan since day one. Gotta catch them all, gotta catch them all, gotta catch them all, gotta catch them all. It's in the songs, it's in the marketing, it's in everything. So Nintendo has been programming their fan base to catch them all for over 20 years, and now they're like, oh, no, you can't catch them all in this game. There's just something kind of ironic about that now their fan base has turned on them so hard because of what's arguably their own programming. The people that are upset about this are the people that spend a year playing that game, right? You know, when X and Y, when Sun and Moon came out, they spent a year, you know, grinding up Pokemon, legitimately breeding competitive teams, playing the post game, you know, going on BattleSpot, challenging random people online, you know, not always in the competitive VGC environment either, sometimes in, you know, just a fun, oh, I want to use legendaries type of battle, you know. So I want to use these Ubers and go all out, you know, make a viable competitive team with them, you know. And everybody's got their favorite Pokemon. Everybody's got that Pokemon that they're going to be upset is not there, you know. Like, even if it's not their favorite, you know, there's going to be Pokemon that if they're not in there, people are going to be kind of upset about. They're going to be like, man, you know, in the post game, I wanted to transfer this Pokemon in and challenge people online with it because it's one of my favorites to use. You know, that's a thing. If Incineroar is not in there, I'm really going to be bummed about it. You know, I mean, I'm just saying, I love that Pokemon. Will I still play the games anyway? Heck yeah. You know, I love Pokemon. I'm going to play the games. Now, am I going to go out and buy 2 Switches and a copy of each game? Probably not. I'm probably just going to get myself a copy, and maybe I'll find a way to get my nephew Tyson a copy for his birthday or Christmas or something, and we'll trade with each other that way. You know, just you know, just something to think about. Another point that I've seen a lot of people bring it up is the price point for these games are going to be going up. You know, we've been paying about $40 a game for Pokemon titles. You know, $80 if you buy both of them, and now, you know, we're expected to pay about $60 a game. You know, or $120 for both of them. That's a big jump. You know, that's a lot. Now, if you're one of these bigger Pokemon YouTubers and you're getting a free copy or 2 from Nintendo, you probably don't care. But for the rest of us, it is kind of a big deal. And when we're expected to pay more for less, it's kind of annoying. So that's kind of how I feel about the entitlement thing. I think the part about this decision that has people really angry, though, is the way that they announced it. They sort of tried to lay the blame for it at the feet of the fan base. They said, oh, well, in order to make sure that we get this game to the fans as soon as possible, because y'all are rabid and you won't wait for this game any longer, we're gonna make these cuts. It's like basically saying we could have done this, but in order to make sure we get the game done for you guys, we're doing this as fast as possible. That's bogus. Honestly, there's plenty of people in the fan base that are like, hey, I'm willing to wait another year, maybe 2 years for this game in order to make sure it's done right. Please don't do this. So it's not about the fans, it's about their own pocketbooks. Pokemon is a huge multimedia franchise. They do the video game, they do the card game, they do plushies, they do all kinds of official merchandise, and of course they have the anime as well. And all of these things make a ton of money. And one of the things that all those IPs, all those properties depend on is the new Pokemon and new characters that enrich that IP. It's a cyclical sort of a thing where they sort of depend on these new characters to inject interest into the property. When they make these new characters and new regions, they're not catering to the people that quit after they added more than 150 Pokemon after Gen 1. They're catering to the people that stuck with it after that. When they talk about delaying a game, that doesn't mean just delaying the release of a video game. That means, now we've got to push back the new anime. Now we got to, come up with something different to do for the new card game releases. So that's why they don't want to delay the game. It's, it's because it's a multimedia franchise. So I'm not saying I don't understand why they don't want to delay the game. I get it. It's just that, trying to lay the blame at the feet of the fan base, saying, oh, well, we're doing this because y'all are just animals and you can't wait for a game to be finished properly, is just ludicrous. I mean, I know they didn't say it in those words, but that's kind of the way it sounded. To me, it was kind of a condescending way to say things. This is the fan base's fault that this game is being rushed. That's not okay. It's not okay to lay the blame on the fans like that. To say, oh, well, we're just trying to get it out to the fans as soon as possible. It's all for the fans, the fans. No, that's not, be honest. You're doing it for your own pocketbook. It's not about the fans getting the game faster. Because, like I said, most of the fans would be much happier with the game if it had the National Dex in it and included everything. Now, one of the reasons that they cited for not being able to include all of the Pokemon in the game was the fact that there's going to be all these new animations. And a lot of people, I think there's been some confusion in the community about it, because they're looking at the animations that we saw in the demo, like a lot of the battle animations and whatnot, and they're like, oh, these are the new animations that they're talking about. I disagree. They're not spending all this time to make Score Bunny hop up and down, kicking its feet out. That's part of it, but each individual Pokemon's battle animations and the new animations for moves are just a small part of the animations they're doing. What's really, I think, going to be the bulk of the new animations is they mentioned this during the Direct, and a lot of people have not picked up on it. But there's going to be a mini game where you can play with your Pokemon while you're camping. There's going to be a whole camping thing that you can do in the wild area in the Galar region. It's going to be very reminiscent of, you know, the anime where the protagonist would have a little camp set up, you know, a little fire, and they'd have all their Pokemon just hanging out, eating or whatever. This is going to be similar to that, where when you're sitting, you can set up a little camp while you're out in the wilderness, and you can play a mini game or two with your Pokemon. Now, I don't know how involved this is going to be, but every Pokemon that's in the game is going to have a set of animations for these interactions that you have with them at the campground. I think it's unfortunate. I think it's going to be similar to Pokemon Ami and Pokemon Refresh, but probably a little more involved. And, you know, I think with what we saw with Pokemon Ami and Pokemon Refresh, and even interacting with your partner in Let's Go Pikachu or Let's Go Eevee, was that these interactions do add a little something to the game, at least initially. Like it's more immersive. You feel like your Pokemon is really your pet, and you can play with them. But after a while, those features get repetitive and boring. Like, you know, all those other features that I mentioned, the Pokemon Ami, the Pokemon Refresh, the Pokemon partner interaction with Pikachu and Eevee in the Let's Go games. They're cute and endearing at first, but after you've played them a while and you've seen all the little animations for the character that you're invested in, it starts to get old and stale really fast. So in the end, it doesn't add a ton to the gaming experience. And in the case of Pokemon Refresh, it actually kind of got really, it becomes a chore, because you end up having to do that Pokemon Refresh grind with all of your Pokemon, and they did take that into consideration with the Sun and Moon games, and make it to where you can use the Poke Beans to just max out their Pokemon Refresh status pretty much immediately. Just feed them 3 rainbow Poke Beans and you're done. You know, and that's kind of to my point, is that those features don't really add a lot to the game after a while, so they basically put in a way to skip it and still get all the benefits. So yeah, I think a lot of the animations that they're talking about that they need to that they're working on and that they need all this development time for are going to be those camping animations for each of the Pokemon, and not just the T-posing Wingulls in the world map. You know, as the thumbnail for this video indicates, as far as culling half of the decks to make the rest of it better, that's Thanos logic right there. Thanos is the bad guy in the Avengers movies that he said. I'm just saying. I do think that they'll still be fun games, don't get me wrong. I do think that I will still enjoy playing Pokemon Sword and Shield. I don't know if I'm going to get the same level of replay or continued play after the game is over. I don't know how much I'm going to be playing the game after I complete the story without all those additional Pokemon in there to mess with. That to me is kind of up in the air. There's still probably more to come. There's still probably more stuff that's going to be revealed about the game before it's released. Maybe something will change my mind, but right now, I don't think that's a great idea. I think that the whole campfire game thing, that type of interaction with your Pokemon, I think that's a feature that might be better served in Pokemon Home, honestly. They've been talking about possibly adding different gameplay elements to Pokemon Home. I think that would be the type of thing that would be cool to do there. Maybe have some sort of a mini game where you could play with your Pokemon and increase their effort values or something. Be a new way to EV train your Pokemon. That way you'd always have a way to EV train your Pokemon or earn bottle caps or whatever. Even if there's not a convenient way to EV train them in whatever new games come along. So I think the main reason that I wanted to make this video was just to kind of tell the Pokemon community to be nicer to each other. I guess I've seen a lot of comments on videos about it, and other comments telling them to shut up, you know, stuff like that on Twitter, where like Wolfie Glick, the former Pokemon World Champion, he posted on his Twitter, you know, he said, oh, all this hashtag bring back the National Dex stuff in Pokemon's Twitter feed makes me ashamed to be a Pokemon fan. It's like, why are you ashamed of that? Why are you ashamed to be part of a community that has that many passionate fans in it? They're complaining about this because they love the game, and they don't want that feature to go away. It's a feature that's been there since the beginning of the game, and it's something that they're passionate about. They don't want it gone. I understand if that feature doesn't matter as much to you. You know, Wolfie Glick's a fantastic, phenomenal VGC player, and you know, to him, not having access to Pokemon that you can't use in VGC anyway is not that big of a deal. I get it. But to be ashamed of the rest of the community because they're passionate about a part of the game that you don't care about, I mean, again, people play Pokemon for different reasons. You know, some people are going to pick that game up, they're going to play through the story, and that game is going to wind up in a GameStop within 2 or 3 days, ready to be sold to the next person who's going to enjoy it. You know, there's plenty of people that are just going to play the game once and then set it down and forget about it. It happens with every game franchise. There's people that just, that's what the game is there for. It's there to be played, dominated, and forgotten about. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Those people help people who want to get the game but maybe can't afford it to get those games more cheaply. You know, maybe not by much, but you know, they still don't have to pay as much for a used copy as they do for a new one. What I'm trying to say is, when you're leaving comments about somebody else's opinion, remember that's something that they're passionate about. You shouldn't just disregard their opinion because it's different than yours. You know, again, just try to think about the way the other person feels. Try not to just dismiss their thoughts completely. It's not entitlement to expect something from a game that's been there since day one. The argument that it's inevitable that this had to happen, again, Thanos logic. There are people in the Pokemon fan base that would be much happier if Pokemon had never gone into 3D. They would love it if the game still looked like Fire Red and Leaf Green, and they were just sprite based. You know, maybe with higher quality sprites, but I mean, you know, a lot of people thought that Gen 6 was kind of the downturn of Pokemon as a franchise when they stopped using the sprites and went with 3D models, you know. And if they had kept using sprites, you know, with maybe just small changes here and there, would we be at this point now? You know, I know plenty of ROM hackers that say they can get 1,000 Pokemon into a Pokemon game with minimal difficulty, you know, and yeah, it would be Fire Red, Leaf Green level graphics, but Pokemon has never been about graphics. Pokemon had bad graphics from day one. Like, Gen 1 was on the Game Boy, the original Game Boy. It's not even half as powerful as a Nintendo Entertainment System, okay? Like, we're talking just the basest graphics you could possibly get. So Pokemon has never been about how pretty it is or how advanced its graphics are. It's always been kind of low-key bootleg. You know, like it's kind of been on that low end of the graphic spectrum the whole time. And Nintendo, Nintendo's product line as a whole, like, you know, they've been focused more on gameplay than they have on graphical superiority. They're not trying to compete with Xbox and Sony on photorealistic graphics. They're just, you know, trying to put out a cheaper product that does gameplay well. And there's nothing wrong with that. As the game industry evolves, there's going to be a point where everybody's got photorealistic graphics, So at some point, you have to make those games worth playing. Otherwise, nobody's going to care. I've been rambling for about 30 minutes now. I have no idea how long this video is going to be after it's edited. I just wanted to kind of get my thoughts together and put them out there. I don't think this is something that needs to tear this community apart. I really don't. Yes, it's disappointing. I don't think we need to get together an angry mob with pitchforks and storm Game Freak. I really don't. They're going to do what they're going to do. It's for their company's bottom line. I get it. I do think that it's important to let them know that we don't like this as a community. I think it's great that their whole Twitter feed is full of the hashtags for bringing back the National Dex, because it lets them know how passionate the community is about it, and how much they don't like this quote-unquote new direction that the games are headed in, and maybe gives them some pause, maybe gives them some time to think about it. It might not affect Sword and Shield. That game is already well into development, and they're probably not going to delay the release for it, but it may get them thinking about maybe doing some DLC where they add more Pokemon, or just in the future making sure that they leave themselves enough development time to get everybody in there. As far as, you know, the replacing Mega Evolutions and Z Crystals with Dynamaxing, I don't think Mega Evolutions are gone for good. I really don't. They're not going to take all the time to develop all those new Pokemon forms and then not use them ever again. If Dynamaxing, like if we don't get a different version of Dynamaxing, because there's been talk in some of these leaks about Gigantamaxing, where the Pokemon's appearance does change. If that never happens, if Dynamaxing is just making Pokemon huge, I can see that never being in another region outside of Galar. Maybe showing up in, you know, the hypothetical Gen 4 remakes that happen after that, but honestly, I could see that never being used again. I could see Z Crystals never really being used again. Mega Evolutions, I don't think are going to go away forever. Like I said, that involves having a whole new Pokemon form. Even if they don't use the same, you know, Mega Ring, Mega Crystal formula, I think Mega Evolutions in some way, shape, form, or fashion will continue to show up in various Pokemon games. I don't think that's going to go away. Thank you all so much for watching to the end. I do hope that this video gave you something to think about. And as always, I hope everybody has a great day. Bye-bye!